Hello dears, Natalie Locke here with episode 45 of Write the Story, where I give you a prompt and 10 words out of this book. If you want the book, the link is in the description. And you have about 600 words worth of space to write the story if you go based off the book. See. But let's be honest, if it's under 1,000 words, that is still a flash fiction, and there's many times where I couldn't fit all the words in the story. Now, if this is your first time doing a flash fiction, I recommend setting no time limit whatsoever. You can outline, you cannot outline. It is your prerogative on how you want to get your story on the page. The way I like to do this is I take 5 to 10 minutes to think about those 10 words that I'm to include in the story, and I let little flashes and glimpses of scenes or angles to pop into my mind to write into the story. So after I take 5 to 10 minutes to outline, I then take 20 minutes, sometimes it's broken up, sometimes it's longer, to write the story. Let me go ahead and give you episode 45's prompt and 10 words. The prompt is a fishing trip. The 10 words to include are jig, unsightly, weight, beam, shoulder, gray, reminder, mouth, Canada, and river. With this outline, the word that stood out to me was weight, and I ended up making that kind of my theme, the lesson to learn here. Because with all my flash fictions, I always try to think of what is the purpose, what is the conflict, what is the growth. And I decided to write this story from a father's perspective to his sons right before they go fishing themselves. And it's the father being reminiscent of his own fishing trip to get his first catch with his father. So the little scenes that popped in my head was like with jig, I imagined a little kid doing like a jig almost before he gets in the boat because he's so excited. Then his father has to tell him to calm down so that he can get into the boat safely. For gray, I was thinking a gray sky, and it was mirrored by the lake. But then I actually have been to the Great Lakes before, and they're kind of choppy a little bit. So I decided to throw that in there. Also, for Canada, I changed it to Canadian. I said that the water came down from the Canadian mountains through the rivers and where their mouths open up into the lake. So that's how I used all of those words. Right when the main character gets his fish, the sunbeam shines right down onto the lake, illuminating the catch. That was kind of the image I got, was that the sun just happened to peek through the clouds at that very moment as he got his first fish. Then I started looking at the other words I had. So unsightly, I was thinking, what is unsightly at a lake? And it's the mud around the banks, especially if it's really muddy and just icky and mush. So I said the mud was unsightly around the bank. For shoulder, I was thinking once the father, in this case, in his story reminiscing about his own catch, once he caught his fish, his own father patted him on the shoulder and said, "I'm proud of you, son." And that image kind of stuck with me, and I held on to that. So out of all the words that I set out to write and the images I got with them, none of the words changed. And I'm okay with that. It's fine. And what I ended up with at the end of this flash fiction is 515 words. Now I'm going to read you my version of episode 45. Son, let me tell you about my first time fishing. I remember only bits and pieces of that day, but I will never forget my first catch, which happened many days later. The mud around the lake was unsightly, but it didn't stop me from doing a jig, to the point my dad had to tell me to calm down before he'd let me climb into the boat. The sky was gray, making the choppy lake look dark gray at times, similar to this one. I said as we both looked out at a similar scene of the lake through my truck's windshield. I turned back to Jacob to finish my story. The lake was very cold, with water from the Canadian mountains feeding into the rivers whose mouth ran into the lake. That was where all the fish were. So we had to load our boat into the water and row our way to the spot. Your grandfather called that a warm-up to fishing. That is when I learned the most important lesson. What? Jacob asked. I learned the art to wait, I replied. Jacob's brow lowered as he pursed his lips. Sometimes in life you'll set a goal. You can do everything right. Arrive early, have the right equipment, practice time and time again, maybe even have a buddy with you working towards the same goal. But you know what? Jacob shook his head. You may have to wait to reach that goal. You may not reach the goal on the day you set out to make it, but you may be able to reach it on the next day. I had to wait 3 days to hit my goal of my first catch. As much as a struggle as that was, once I made it, it all seemed worth the wait. I remember Dad telling me to hold my catch up so he could take a picture. Just at the same time, the sun was able to push through the clouds and send a beam of light right on the lake. After I released the fish, Dad patted my shoulder and told me he was proud of me. I allowed myself to look out over the lake again. Is that why you keep the photo? As a reminder to wait? Jacob asked. Taken back to the story, I chuckled. Yeah, I guess so. Also, because I knew I wanted to have my son's first catch photo next to mine. I tousled Jacob's hair and he tossed my hand away with a smile on his face. Ready to go fishing? I asked as I exited the cab. Jacob got out and met me at the trailer hitch. Don't you mean, am I ready to wait, Dad? It's only waiting until you reach your goal, and we'll come out every day this summer if you wish to until you reach it. I unlatched the boat trailer from the truck. Can we come out every day even if I do get my first catch today? I stood up and patted Jacob's shoulders. Yes, we can. I really enjoyed this story. I liked the theme of a father-son spanning multiple generations, a tradition forming here, and I thought it was great, especially with the mirrored of the past to the present. But the part I think that I messed up the most is the whole talking heads syndrome. And it's not talking heads in the sense of white room, because you knew they were in the cab of the truck, but talking in the sense of who's doing the talking and at what point in time, because the father is present in the story as a child and his father is in that past, and then the father is present now in the cab of the truck with his son conveying the story. And I'm not quite sure I was on point with my dialogue tags and such to convey who is talking and what time period. Is it in the past talking, or is it talking right now? I really needed to work on that. But I did have a favorite line, but it's kind of like a whole paragraph, and it's the whole lesson of the story. The part that stood out to me the most is the moral of the story. And it's this paragraph, or this most of the sentences from this paragraph. Sometimes in life, you set a goal. You can do everything right. Arrive early, have all the right equipment, practice time and time again, maybe even have a buddy with you working towards that same goal. But do you know what? You may have to wait to reach that goal. And now that spans 2 paragraphs. The first part is all one paragraph. That you may have to reach your goal is a subsequent paragraph with Jacob shaking his head no in the middle because his father asked him a question. I love this line so much because it's something I have to tell myself, where you are facing a struggle, you prepare, you do everything right, but sometimes timing just doesn't match up. It's not going to happen today. And that's okay that it doesn't happen today. It may happen tomorrow. The point is to make sure you've done your best and there's nothing more you could have done. I've applied to different jobs over the years and I think to myself, oh, what else could I do? What could I make it better? What would make me a stronger candidate? But at the end of the day, if I have done everything I can do, and if the something more I could have done would have sacrificed my family, my mental well-being, or otherwise something else that I don't want to sacrifice, if that is the next step of the more I could do, then I've done enough. And it's being okay with doing enough without sacrificing more of yourself is really key. I hope you enjoyed my version of episode 45, and I hope you continue to find enjoyment through your passions, whatever it may be, every single day, every week, every month, and every year.